what people are doing when they're forming a band is they're forming what an anthropologist would call a clan. It's a group of people who may not be genetically related, but share interests of some kind and have pledged loyalty to each other. I think men in particular have a kind of instinct for banding together and being in a group together. Most of the identity of that group is formed by its separateness from everybody else.
There is a moment when it is dysfunctional not to look at the past. 20 years into it, the randomness of an anniversary, we're actually going to look at it. We're going to open the box. Making Achtung Baby was the reason we're still here now. That was the pivot point where we were either going forward or is this our moment to implode? I thought to myself, this is it. We've come to the end of the road. Band breaks up over artistic differences. Classic cliche.
We're going to have to listen to The Fly, I think, and so if we can play it back, we can't afford to make a mistake on the second song.
Yes.
We had this thing where we really kind of believed in music as a sacrament. It's over there. You almost would take your shoes off in its company. So we've quite a low opinion of the musician and a very high opinion of music. We're only reverent to the thing if it happens. That thing, whatever you call it, you know, the song that enters the room and you go, that's why we're all here. It's not gonna work.
It's not work, does You can stop that if you would. Do we know where that's from? Was that actually played to human beings who are gathered together for the purpose of music?
Was that a guitar?
It sounds like.
From you? Yeah, it's a special mix.
Okay, it's certainly very special. Okay, Joe, do you have a version that you mixed?
There's an environment out of which music grows. There's a kind of faith that's necessary to move from one note to the other. That wasn't the environment we were in. We felt as we walked into this place, well, you know, it's so full of greatness. That greatness will visit with us. So we're there. And greatness is nowhere to be seen. Greatness has left the building, it seems, years ago.
This is good. Try it more from you, Edge, just more totally abstract, like sonic abstraction.
At this moment, we're a long way from the madness of Zoo TV. We're a long way from taking a television station around the world. Picture, picture. Picture, picture. At this moment, we couldn't imagine what we were going to become.
Edge, brilliant. Really great. Remember that singing. Lock them at the back of your head.
We're much closer now. The 80s, I think they suffered a lot from my own intensity. 'Cause you don't know what you want. So our rehearsals were a lot of the time me shouting at people. Well, shouting over the fucking racket they were making, and then shouting to achieve some kind of direction. And I don't know how they put up with that.
Waiting to happen. Okay, hold on.
Because you're in full flight, if I stop it, it'll just sound bad.
No, it'll be great. Great if you stop.
Okay.
It's a big, wild thing like that. Okay, keep going. Waiting to happen. Your piece of glass left there on the beach. Well, you tell me things I know you're not supposed to. Then you leave me just out of reach.
Bono is the same now as he was back then. I mean, he's just one big idea. The moment I met him, he had the ball and he was running with it. And this was his opportunity. Look at where this could go with a guy like that. You know, having that guy out front, having that guy as your singer. Anything is possible. You want to do this? We can do this. Here's a plan. It was hard not to be taken by, intoxicated by it. Just going, wow, this is something.
After we'd left school, there was this period where Edge went to a technical college, Larry got a job, Bono almost got into college, and I wasn't doing anything.
Okay, here goes.
Okay, the band could just fall apart.
Well, you stole it.
Slowly, everyone kind of came back together again and said, we've tried this kind of going to college thing and this going to work thing, and we don't really want to do that. We want to be in the band.
Stupid boy, you're on the table until you're able to, boy, broken toy.
Adam was the oldest, wisest, with his posh, plummy British accent. Edge was very reflective, even then, and kind of studious. Larry was a real life force. He laughed a lot, but then he'd have moments of panic where he'd go, what am I doing hanging out with you guys? I was a bit of a brat, but I'd had enough trauma at home. I was too raw to be a total pain in the arse. But I had a lot of front. In fact, that's all I had. I managed to break through the self-consciousness. I got almost violent, hitting notes I couldn't sing. I always knew that I had these melodies in my head. I knew them when I was 8, when I was 10, but I had no ability to express them. One of my earliest memories was in my granny's house. They had a piano. I couldn't see the keyboard, but I could make a sound. When I hit one of those notes, my instinct was to find another note that felt good with it. And I even then discovered the power of reverb. I remember sticking my foot on the pedal of a piano and how this tiny living room would become a cathedral. When I found my voice, it was like I'd been walking with a limp. It was the first time I walked up straight. Rock and roll, joining this band, was emancipation. It was liberation. And I just knew this feeling was the greatest feeling I could have.
The clan sees itself as distinct from everybody else around and sees itself as bound by some ties of loyalty.
Sounded great.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Maybe a bit more passion this time, Bob.
Yeah, it was a bit restrained, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe you could try standing for this one.
The only direction I might offer you is that the first chorus might be a little more restrained than the others, but I wouldn't like to inhibit what you're doing.
Okay, that's sort of first thing.
All the British rock and roll people, even the punk rock people, Joe Strummer and Paul Simon, they're all art school. John Lennon, art school. Eric Clapton, art school. Jimmy Page, art school. They're all art school. Brian Eno was our art school.
It is like painting. You're putting sounds together. You're adding things, taking them off the next day. Suddenly the act of making music is spread over months rather than a single performance. I think they always know that it's difficult, and if it isn't difficult, they don't trust it. Every record they've ever made has gone right down to the very last second.
That's the thing. I would just like to know that we have got a good take, even if there are one or two things to repair, and then we can go on with some less sense of desperation into doing some other takes.
What do you think, Bono? You want to try a few lines on this?
I'll do some scat singing, if that's any help to you.
When Bono goes off and does a vocal, and you think you've heard a whole set of lyrics, you think, wow, I was really touched by that lyric, and then you listen later and say, wait a minute, he's fudging half the words.
No secret that I got, mocking my stare. No secret that I call.
Bono's singing and he's just channeling. He's trying to get to the vocabulary of the melody in sound.
Anything there?
We get the music, then the melody, and then we try to let the words sort of express the feeling that's in the song. Because there's a feeling in every piece of music. It's an odd way to live your life as a composer, building your house from the sky down. Sometimes I think I'm cleverer than what than the expression that's just come out. It's not a place for a vain man to be, intellectually vain. I find myself listening on little tape machines to me singing gobbledygook. It's like a child. It's like I'm speaking Japanese or Italian or something.
So Bongolese is like a language it's just a made-up language.
I hear then a word, I hear then a thought, and I have to scribble it down.
We always had a mic ready when Bono came into the room. And he'd hear something, he'd say, oh, and he'd start singing. And if you didn't catch it, it was gone. He didn't repeat things, or if he did, he didn't repeat them with that same oddness that the first moment would have.
What's the chorus again?
We'd spent the 80s throwing stones at other people. Now we start throwing stones at ourselves.
Sweetheart, you're so cruel.
Yeah, pretty much. The only difference is we have songs now. Back then, we didn't really have songs. Well, the mid-80s, we started to tour in America. It wasn't a thing of Having been prepared, groomed, made ready for it, it was like suddenly, boom, you were there.
Being 22 or 23 and you have a bit of success is going to be tricky for anybody. If you come from Dublin, and not only do you come from Dublin, you're still in Dublin, it's going to make you a little self-conscious.
I met him in '82. I was working for a magazine in England called the New Musical Express. He asked me to go to New Orleans to shoot U2. I never heard of U2.
There was certainly a house photographic style. We used to jokingly refer to it. Since most of the photographs during that time were taken by Anton, I think there was a certain amount of collusion. That was the way the band wished to present themselves.
The work was always serious, and that was for me the same. You know, my photography, if you look at my books, it's never about the lighter moments.
Larry,
We hated photo
make
shoots.
sure you get some sun on your face. And you come all a bit forward.
We started to be those kind of earnest, po-faced men.
Now I know why we always look so grim in our photographs. We just felt so bored. Sorry, Anton.
Yeah, well,
What was that?
you're bored.
No.
I went out one night with Bono in a little cafe, and I said, you know, there's a tree here which I really love. It's called the Joshua tree, and it would be a brilliant idea to have that on the front, and then the band will be on the back, like a continuation.
He's Dutch, and he can't say Joshua. He would say Joshua. So we really got off on getting him to say Joshua Tree back.
The Joshua tree sleeve is my favorite sleeve. The faces were sculptured in stone.
We always felt that the photograph should look like the material. Anton was not photographing us. He was photographing our songs and the environment of those songs. So there was pictures of us, stoic, sort of Irishmen, pilgrims in the desert. People would say, when they meet you, that you're not the same person. This is a very dangerous place to be when your public image is so different from your private reality.
And the winner is the Joshua tree, U2.
We'd arrived. Suddenly, this was our defining moment.
I'd like to thank Jack Healy and Amnesty International for all their work, Desmond Tutu for his courage.
It was a very mad time. We were guys in our mid-20s having this amazing experience. Nothing could have prepared you for that.
Disney, John the Baptist, George Best, Gregory Peck, Batman and Robin, sumo wrestlers throughout the world, and of course, Ronald Reagan.
They want to put us on the cover of Time magazine, yeah?
Can you tell us something about this film you guys are supposed to be doing?
It's a comedy. It's a comedy about the tour.
It was a great idea. It was a really good idea.
All you need is a good PA system.
Make a small film about the band.
Is a large lighting rig and a very good promoter.
And everyone went, yippee, this is a great idea.
Really great movie behind you.
The next thing was like, well, we're going to invest all the money we made from the Joshua tree into this thing. Paramount are going to take it, and it's going to go to cinemas all over the place.
I encouraged the idea of a movie. Remember that in the course of the tour, we went from being an arena band to being a stadium band and had to learn how to do that kind of on the run. This was in the days before video reinforcement.
It was hell. It was literally just us in a stadium.
We were so out of our depth and not quite proficient enough to be consistent.
It was a roller coaster ride. There was a white knuckle aspect to just holding on.
We didn't have enough material to do a stadium show.
Bono felt particularly vulnerable. He's out there sticking his ass out the window, and he expects the band are going to be there.
Every night we would come off the stage, we would debrief ourselves, and we would have this overriding feeling of doom and gloom that we just weren't good enough.
You got the sets starting with streets?
You couldn't just rely on making it up on the night.
Gloria, Maggie's, MLK. No, Maggie's. Then bad, I think. I had two alternatives anyway.
Shit happens. The drum kit would move forward.
I'm getting this gigantic drum sound just to front of my head.
The sound I'd have on stage wouldn't work.
I can't live with this.
Edge would break a guitar string, and it would happen every night for a week. For him, he became just wild. Pent up, rage, anger, I mean, the whole gamut of emotions. So, and you really didn't know what you were going to get. It was very intense.
Nobody would take responsibility for what was happening. It was quite obvious what I was trying to do. You know what I mean? You wouldn't need a doctorate in stagecraft to know what I was trying to do. Fucking idiot. But they are mad down here. For God's sake, how do they throw me up on stage with people like that for?
It was particularly difficult for Bono because he had to really work as a physical performer to sell those songs.
Having to steel ourselves almost to deal with the position we found ourselves in. And we'd become overly earnest, overly intense, overly protective.
I think that after whatever it is, 7 months, things will get easy. They're nearly getting easy. It's still so hard to be on the stage, I find. The same sections of the set are still as hard. It's like either the spirits there or the spirits down the road having a pint.
In the course of that tour, they became fascinated, if you like, by America.
That's my wife.
The reason for making Rattle and Hum was actually to prove something to ourselves and to our audience.
It was an experiment in drawing from the American roots music canon.
I want to learn the blues for you today. Did I go to the right place?
The idea behind Rattle and Hum was, wouldn't it be interesting if we went on this journey to discover American music, because we had no background in it. Let people see us as fans.
Just because something was new for us doesn't mean it's new for the listener. People knew all about B.B. King. They knew all about the blues. They knew all about country music.
It looked to people like we were going, oh, let's introduce you to your music. That's such a shame, really. We had unbelievable amounts of laughs, except when you put the camera on. Then we just like, it was gone. He went through miles and miles and miles of takes, and there's no joy in it.
What's the deal with the camera, Phil? Do we just pretend it's not there, or
No, you can
get on
do whatever you want. Yeah, this is just like whatever it's for fun. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Do it talk into
It's
it.
fun for him, guys.
I know. But the good thing is that it's your camera.
As post-production started, they involved themselves in the cut and got to choose which way they really wanted to be seen.
film is entirely shot in America, showing you two in America. Why is that? Why is that? Well, I think...
Let people see the sort of naivete. And what came out the other end was a slew of reviews saying these people are fucking megalomaniacs.
And the backstage footage shows the band members being deliberately inarticulate in interviews and pretending that that's supposed to be cute. But it's not cute to giggle and pretend you have nothing to say.
Everyone was kind of a little shell-shocked.
You start to believe what people are saying about you. You start to think, maybe this is the end. I was sitting with Ali and she said, "You've gotten so serious. You've gotten so serious." The boy I fell in love with was so full of mischief, so full of madness, and you're a much more experimental character. What's happened to you?
A group is a sort of collective ego in a sense, and that ego is very easily offended.
We found out that he had left the group when we got copies of the letter from the record companies.
Of course, popularity is a great ruiner of friendships in a way.
That makes me feel like sad, you know? That's like somebody take you out to dinner and you think you had a great time, and at the end of the night they go, "Hey, you know what? I had a really lousy time. And you know what? You're lousy too, but thanks for dinner."
Should I stay or should I go now? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go, there will be trouble.
It's to do with personalities, you know what I mean? And I didn't spit, I didn't do a walkies, no did, you know what I mean? So you'd have to ask him. Apparently I was a nightmare to work with, apparently I had my own dressing rooms and stuff like that. I don't think so, mate.
Should I stay or should I go now? Should I stay or should I go now? If I go, there will be trouble. And if I stay, it will be double. So you gotta let me know. Should I cool it or should I blow? Should I stay or should I go?
Well, I'm going home.
This, I was explaining to people the other night, but I might have got it a bit wrong. This is just the end of something for you two, and that's why we're playing these.
We were physically exhausted and creatively felt we'd run out of steam.
It's no big deal, just we have to go away and just dream it all up again. So.
Hang on, wait till I put my hat on. Anyway, we're going very shortly to the Point Depot in Dublin, where you two are playing.
This didn't become us, this kind of band we had become. We looked like a big overblown rock band running amok. The Irish sons returning home triumphant. Irish people go, ooh. First of all, they look like some American band. Not just an American band, like some American show band. You left here as an interesting post-punk phenomenon. You go to America, fine, we'll run with you on the Joshua Tree. But now you've actually become this. You've come back. And by the way, you're not very good at it. When we were kids, 16, 17 years old, going to see The Clash in Dublin, this was the enemy. Have we become the enemy? We hadn't committed any great crimes against humanity or art. All we'd done was been a little self-conscious and overblown.
I'd like to thank Edge and Adam and Larry for letting me be in their band.
They started out, as do most bands, by saying, we don't want to be that, and we don't want to be that, and we don't want to be that. And then they carried on by saying, and we don't want to be what we were either. As an artist, your biggest enemy is your own history, actually.
Couldn't make corrective adjustments to put it right. The limb had to come off, you know? Let's get a big fucking chainsaw and cut down the Joshua tree.
Great. Good. Thank God for that. So now let's go and figure it out. However, but that was the end of the conversation. Bono made that statement. That was it. Next time we met, I think, was not long before we turned up in Berlin.
We were running away from Lovetown and Rattle And Hum as fast as we could. I mean, I was listening to bands like KMFDM, Einstürzende Neubauten, The Young Gods. Machine age music is really what it is. It's about the use of repetition and taking the humanity out of things to a degree, so that the humanity that you put in there means more. Something about that new decade, the 90s, something about the fall of the Berlin Wall, a new Europe emerging. That's what we were focusing on.
There was a lot of experimental avant-garde kind of music that was coming out of Berlin and coming out of Germany.
Berlin was all about texture. Manchester was about rhythm that could only be created using computers and machines. I mean, the kids in Manchester don't know about that. They just instinctively know that that stuff is uncool, this is a cool direction. It was at that moment when rock and roll and club culture sort of come together. Records being made for dancing. You could really trace it back to German theory, Stockhausen, and these ideas about what modern composition should be about.
German music has had a huge impact on us, from Kraftwerk when I was 16. One of the first records I bought for Ali was Man Machine on our 15th birthday. This is soul music from Europe. This is the invention of electronic music. And they had a big influence on Joy Division, which had a big influence on us.
There was just an education and rhythm going on that you couldn't ignore. How are we going to absorb that and allow it to just make us better?
After the New Year's Eve gig, and there wasn't a lot of communication, Bono and Edge took themselves off and decided to try and find a new way of writing and developing ideas.
There was a little bit of abandonment, and a lot of that abandonment for me, you know, I spent in not good places.
I took some drum lessons and listened to music that I hadn't listened to before.
Cream and Ginger Baker and stuff like that. You have to reject one expression of the band first before you get to the next expression. And in between, you have nothing. You have to risk it all.
The height of technology was the DAT player. So I rang Bono and said, I got this idea, see what you think. He came in and he heard, he said, I think it's good, let's try it. So we recorded a few takes and...
Yeah, all right. Come on now, give me that chocolate mousse. Ready?
It's all right.
Reggie. All right, Reggie. Give me the chocolate mousse. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, it's bass part from Mysterious Ways.
It's like trying on a new leather jacket. You're just like, oh, maybe this, yeah, this can work. Like, okay, make a few adjustments. Yeah, it's sort of, is it me? Yeah, it's kind of me. You can hear like Bono's trying to find himself in this.
If you had that kind of genius that you could just sit on the groove, it's a great groove. It's just no song there.
This is not Larry. This is the drum machine. So it's got no personality. It's just.
It's not all right, in fact.
In Dublin, I had a little studio in the house. The two of us worked together, just going through possible melodic ideas. It just didn't go anywhere.
The idea of going away to a remote location and recording away from home was kind of already in the air. And I think Hansa must have been the #1 candidate.
It was, I think, the feeling of being somewhere where there was a culture collision going on.
There's a tension, just a natural tension there. If drama is conflict, you're going to end up in these kinds of places.
Hansa.
Yeah, it's a great rock and roll room. A lot of good records were made there, and
Oh, we can be heroes just for one day.
We'd heard about it from Brian Eno. He'd been here with David Bowie, obviously.
The engineer that we had got very close to and was also a co-producer, Flood, had worked in Berlin before.
From about 84, 83, with a variety of different artists. When Bono said, we want to go to Hansa, we want to soak up that atmosphere, it was like, okay, brilliant.
You took Iggy Pop to Berlin to make his record.
I think, yes, I think it's a very good therapeutic city for an artist to go to.
I wanted to
come back to not the punk street level, but a real street level where you have to go and do things for yourself, where nobody will take any notice of you. I was totally anonymous in Berlin.
Suddenly you're creating a kind of crucible. It's like a focused capsule where it's just the group of you.
Eno was always a bit frustrated by the domesticity of the rock band, if you like.
It makes sense to just break away for a little while and let the thing go kind of out of control.
And we just felt we wanted to get away to a place where we were much more focused on making the record. We didn't have to, deal with all the other paraphernalia that surrounds us in Dublin.
Plumbers to talk to and interior decorators. Interior decorators are the death of recording, actually.
The idea was to do something that had its roots partly in club culture, something very rhythmic. So we started out by using a drum machine in Dublin, programming this very intricate polyrhythmic kind of beat with a lot of swing, a place that U2 would never go to normally. We were trying to find our way into dance, a kind of groove music that wasn't cliched.
We were very much reacting to that shift away from Americana.
Behind the workings of all of those songs was this awareness of the rhythmic sophistication had to kind of come up.
So we were the last flight in to the old divided Berlin. It's British Airways, last one in the sky. Therefore, the pilot could just circle Berlin. And he had a very plummy accent, and it was, just going down over the Brandenburg Gate. As you know, we have the skies to ourselves tonight, and I'm just going to take on a little tour over here. This was the wall. We're like, and there was a little bit of bombs away about it, no doubt about it.
More than 1 million Germans are out on the streets of Berlin tonight, celebrating the birth of a united Germany in what is once again its official capital.
We went looking for the celebrations because we're Irish and we like to go out. And we ended up in a huge mass rally. But people didn't really look like they were having a very good time. It was like grim, very grim, until we discovered that we weren't at the celebration for the wall coming down. We were at a protest meeting to put the wall back up.
I can't recall this exact spot, but I can recall, of course, behind the houses that I'm looking at now, which was where the wall was here, somewhere. The wall was here, I think. And they had Hansa Studios, and there was a lot of wasteland, and you had the wall, because nobody built near the wall. That was just, you know, visually, it was really interesting. And it's hard to beat a good wall for photographs as a background, so I was always a very, very happy person here.
We ended up in this hotel called the Palace Hotel, which is a festival of brown, meaning everything in the fucking hotel was brown. Brown carpet, brown, I mean, East Berlin was brown. Brown knobs on the stereo, brown. I was looking over on a beautiful cathedral, that was nice, from the brown room in the brown hotel.
Every morning we'd drive into the studio and there'd be a new burnt out Trabi on the side of the road. His car had just made it from some obscure part of East Germany and he just had to leave it on the side of the road.
These were cars that people were driving from the east side. They were made from papier-mâché, they had two-stroke engines in them.
Also jetzt nehmen wir bitte den Chef vom Ganzen. Sie machen bitte die Kamera aus. Das ist eine Anordnung. Jetzt ist erstmal die Kamera aus. Nee, die Zeiten sind nur noch. Ich habe nämlich recht auf eigenes Schild. Alles klar? Ja, die ist
Potsdamer Platz, the center of the old Berlin, has got a wall built right through the middle of it. There's a load of gypsies living there. Crusty people, beautiful souls, I'm sure. In the great hippie tradition of that city, they had been given rights to live there. When the wall was knocked down, they owned the most prime real estate in Germany. Then there was Hansa Studios. We're coming here believing in improvisation.
We started out doing the same thing that we'd always done, which was look for the magic moments when we played together.
So it allows the four of us to be in the songwriting process. Even before we went there, there was a sense of something not quite right.
And then when we got there, we were on completely different pages.
We would go into the room and we would just bash it out hour after hour, listen back and not like anything that we were doing.
This is unexpected. We've got these great ideas sounding great in Dublin, and now we've hit Berlin, and what's wrong here?
Love is blindness, I don't wanna see. Won't you wrap the night around me? Oh my love, love is blindness.
His marriage is breaking up, has broken up. We're a really tight community. So this is not like somebody's, girlfriend's left, or we've grown up with these people. This is our family, our community. This was really hard for us and very difficult for my wife. It was like the first cracks on the beautiful porcelain jug with those beautiful flowers in it. That was our music, and our community was starting to go.
Blindness, love is blindness, I don't wanna see.
Leaving Dublin for Berlin was actually, in a weird way, it was a distraction, a way to escape.
Oh my love, blindness.
I was disappearing into the music for a different reason, It was a refuge in a way.
No call, no warning, baby, a dangerous idea that almost makes sense.
That approach didn't completely work, I wasn't really in a good, positive headspace. I was running away, I suppose. I remember being in the studio playing a guitar solo over Love is Blindness. I put everything into it. All the feeling, all the hurt, all the angst, everything went into that solo. Put down the guitar, went into the control, and listened back. That was really bad. And Danny looked at me. Of course, he had no idea what had gone into that. And he said, nah, that's not it, is it, Edge? And I went, Danny, you're right, it's not it.
Around me, oh my love, blindness.
Ever since we were kids, Edge tunes up at high volume, and he doesn't know that he's doing it. And based on the day he's having and his emotional life, he tunes up more or less. So when he's going through his bad times, dang, da-dang, da-dang. So it's like being hit by an iron bar on the back of your head, just going through rehearsals. And Larry's sitting there, he can't even move, and it was like, Edge, would you shut the fuck up? We're trying to talk here. And Edge just goes, ga-dang, ga-dang, ga-dang.
We were kind of going down a lot of blind alleys, and there was a lot of friction, there was a lot of tension, and nobody was particularly happy.
And there begins a sort of internal argument about where we're not going. There was a lot of grumbling as to why we were there in the first place, and nothing was coming out of it.
Within the band, myself and Bono were probably the ones pushing hardest to try new things. Adam was with us. Larry was probably the most resistant and questioning why we were taking the direction we were taking.
He was just not really understanding what Bono and Edge had in mind, where they were coming from, because I had no idea that they were exploring, and particularly Edge was exploring a particular kind of
rhythmic and dancing. I had no idea. There was no us against them, really. I think it was probably, for a moment, each man for himself, which is betrayal of the concept of a band.
People just start to walk a bit differently. Conversation is a little different. The way they carry their cup of tea is different. There's just a sense of tension, of doubt, of... Everyone sort of retreats somewhat into their own little corner.
It was a long, cold existence.
It's fraught with danger because you can fail at any moment, but that's the whole beauty of it. If you're prepared to remove the safety net, and if you're prepared to really expose yourselves, because your pursuit is after the magic moments, those moments of, wow, I would never have imagined.
What I did was I just started to concentrate on ways to solve the musical problems, which is my main sort of personality trait, is a solver of problems.
We would have a rough kind of chord structure, a rough melody, and we would basically try and get a drum take.
I was using a lot of loops and drum machine elements, and so we were trying to mesh Larry's live playing with these programmed elements.
I'd never played to a drum machine that was going to be so present. So this was a very new experience, and I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to give myself to it.
I came in with my offering of the morning of, how about these ideas for the chorus? I don't know which version we were working on.
Starting to come into focus. New bridge. Okay, this is the bit that I was saying that never made the song. Well, this is that. But there was another new bridge. That's a bit mad.
The verse seemed to offer some kind of eternal, joyful, upful melody.
Interesting. That was the first, is that the first? Is that the first time that melody?
That's the first time those chords and that melody were tried out.
But didn't that shift into...
One.
I played these on acoustic guitar and everyone was like trying to decide whether they were any good. And then Danny said, hey, why don't you play those two ideas sequentially? Just play one after another. Let's see what happens. So I did, and everyone was like, oh, that sounds really good. Let's try that. Let's try that in the big room.
When you're at that moment of inception, There's a sense of momentum that takes you into a different place. You're not in the environment. You're not in those four walls.
So we all went into the big room. I showed Adam the chords and we just started playing them. Bono got on the microphone and...
Did you got it, nothing?
Fuck.
Did you want it, nothing?
Suddenly something very powerful is happening in the room.
Acoustic guitar at the speed of light.
Something happens, something comes into the room and you know it. Everyone knew it. Danny. It was one of those hairs on the back of your neck moments.
Well, you're nothing personal. Does it numb to end your call? When the movie's going there, one of us is time bridge. We sing to name, piano edge to the sea, stay on the sea. This A minor, F to G. You can get the piano in, Edge. That helped me the last time. And I'd like to hear Edge, Joe.
He's calling out the chords and moving the chords to figure out where the fertile ground is melodically for him.
Such a pivotal moment. We'd been going through this hard time and nothing seemed to be going right. Suddenly, we were presented with this gift that just kind of arrived. It steadied everyone's nerves hugely in the studio. We're playing these changes, but we're really listening to what Bono's doing on the microphone. Every time he sort of finds a new place to go melodically, we try and go with him dynamically. We, as a band, always seem to come alive when we're all aware of the fact that there's something new happening in the room. Whatever it is, some little spark, some angle that's new, and then everyone's suddenly there.
It can happen very, very quickly, or tragically, very slowly. But in the case of one, things happened extremely quickly.
It's the wrong tempo there. You're probably put off by your echo. Yeah. Can we take the echo? I don't want them to take off the echo, though, if there's a chance they'll lose it.
It wasn't that we found a sonic identity for that. That sort of came later. I think it was we found a spiritual identity. That was the important thing. That was what we actually needed.
There's a sort of blood pact, which is that we have to be truthful with each other. And so it wasn't working. We'd run out of gas. And maybe just saying that was, you know, that maybe we've outgrown each other.
It wasn't Adam's fault, it wasn't Larry's fault, it wasn't Danny's fault. They weren't convinced because we weren't convincing them. The material wasn't done, it wasn't right.
Where's the songs? You know, cut the crap, show us your willy, as the cartoon says. You ever seen that with a peacock? Peacock showing the big fantail. Somebody goes, just cut the crap and show us your willy.
Next time we do the chorus, I want you not to end on a G, but end on a C. Did you hear that, Adam?
The way through writer's block is always by being truthful. To write a song about division, a bittersweet song about disunity.
I think what was going on at that time took us a long time to come to terms with. And I almost can't remember what we were actually trying to come to terms with. But I know we carried each other to the point where we could stand on our own feet.
At the Christmas, everybody just went, fine, that's enough. Go back to Ireland. I think there was about 2 months where there was a sort of sense of regrouping. Like, right, so that's what we've left behind. Okay, well, we have got 1 or 2 things that are leading the way.
Berlin was a baptism of fire. It was something that we had to go through to realize that really what we were looking for and what we were trying to get to was not something you could find physically outside of ourselves in some other city. That there was no magic to it. We had to actually just put the work in and figure out the ideas and hone those ideas down.
I mean, it's never going to be a democracy, but if it's a benevolent dictatorship, that allows everybody to feel that they at least get a chance to say yay or nay. And then you get something like one. Everybody, oh, wow, that's amazing, classic song, genius. Brian, I really don't like that. We're going to have to sort that. That's just boring me to tears.
The idea is to try to set a scene so that the band doesn't walk into a blank canvas.
If it was suddenly all these little glimpses and, oh, I can do that and I can try that.
Thing behind the foreground and push that more and the voice more.
So bells back.
Bells and Dan's like real attacky guitar.
Everybody started to see jumping off points.
In the background.
What about the low one?
I really like that. There's a kind of quicksilver sound about it. It's like shimmery. But I like it like a little sliver of silver at the top. But it needs maybe some grit. And maybe that would come from you, Edge. Okay. You dirty dog. As wiry a sound as you can make it, Edge. Grit, wire. I really miss the drum sound. The original drum sound. It came in so low, the drum, and then it sort of came in and then went up. Yeah. So I missed that, and there was... It's not a point of drama anymore. Yeah. I really missed it.
The thing about Larry is he's as much of a visual part of the band as Bono and Edge was. His style of drumming is unlike anybody else's. It's completely self-taught and he's basically wrong, but thereby incredibly individual.
Yeah, basically what I was just going to do was, because Edge seemed so keen on the previous part, I was basically just going to try and emulate that and then change for the choruses. Sure, I'll do that, no problem. Sure.
Man, he comes up with the drum signatures now. Hardly any drummers do this. You hear the drum beat and you know, oh, that's that song.
Sorry, Larry, I'm stopping you because I don't think that's going anywhere really. It's sort of softening the song up. What I liked about the previous part was that it was brutal and made it sound vigorous and strange.
Yeah.
It might be because there's not a snare involved any longer.
Sure.
Everybody knows the value of the band. The idea that there'll be somebody to challenge you and you can challenge other people, the idea that you can do that as adults and not necessarily have to agree with people.
they're very, very loyal to each other. And they're really, really kind to each other. It's no good to have somebody not well in the unit or not happy. The others don't say, hard luck, mate, we're carrying on. The others say, okay, we've got to get that person happy again. We've got to draw them back into the circle.
If we're being accused of megalomania, let's do some judo. Let's use the force of what's attacking us to defend ourselves. So then we got a voice for this character, the Fly, to go with the glasses. And we distorted the voice so I could go.
It's no secret that the stars are falling from the sky.
It's no secret that the stars are falling from the sky.
It's no secret that our world is in darkness tonight. They say the sun is sometimes eclipsed by a moon. You know I didn't even see you when she walked in the room.
So getting down there into that sort of guttural place, into the gutter, then I had a whole new vocabulary open up.
Man will beg, man will crawl from the sheer face of love, like a strap from a wall.
If you're going to go there, and I just decided I was going to go there, but I couldn't do it without some armor on. If I was going to expose my heart, I needed the right kind of armor to protect the rest of me. No, I'm learning to lie.
Tell us about one.
I'm learning to be insincere. The shades. Rock and roll, man. To quote Iggy Pop, when things get too straight, I can't bear it. And I feel like I'm stuck on a pin. Let's give him a rock star. Let's have some fun with this. I took Lou Reed's glasses and Jim Morrison's pants and Elvis's jacket and a little bit of his haircut. And it was like an identikit rock star, you know, an assemble one yourself. And actually, it was incredibly freeing.
It's no secret that the stars are falling from the sky. It's no secret that our world is in darkness tonight. They say the sun is sometimes eclipsed by a moon. You know I don't see you when she walks in the room. It's no secret that a friend is someone who lets you help. It's no secret that a liar won't believe in anyone else. They say a secret is something you tell one other person. So I'm telling you, shine.
We started to embrace our world and the silliness of it, the contradictory nature of it. We stopped trying to be those earnest, po-faced men.
The mask reveals the man, all right.
It's no secret that a conscience can sometimes be a pest. It's no secret ambition bites the nails of success. Every honest is a cannibal.
And it was a move into brighter light. I think we got a bit fed up with those serious black and white, gloomy photographs. It's Anton really not working in an area that he was comfortable in.
The sheer face of love, like a fly.
I think we did brighten up a bit.
doing our exploration live of media and the troupe, which was Zoo TV.
And maybe the encore is exactly the place. Just, you know, like the fish tanks. Something that might start over there and end up over there, but it's not what you think it is.
They really like it. Yeah, and Ned reckons he can get fins on it and all sorts of things. It's something funny, basically, is there?
Yeah.
During Zoo TV, I remember Edge saying that this fantastic thing, this is our reward for 10 years of restraint.
It's just such a wide expanse to do something that makes people laugh, as opposed to just be impressed.
What can I say? The tour starts here. Something fire. Tell you what we got for Christmas here. We got a TV station. What is this shit? Let's go rock and roll.
Rock it loud, boom, boom, boom. All different versions of us. I saw them. I saw into them. I saw what Edge is now. I saw them. I saw who they could be. It was always there. And I saw Larry, I thought, this guy's a superstar. It's a very unromantic love. It's a very hard, bitten, tough, fuck off love.
Is it getting better? Do you feel the same? Will it make it easier on you now? You got someone to blame. You say one love, one life, when it's one need in the night. One love, you get to share it. Leaves you, baby, you don't care for it. Too much, more than a lot. You gave me nothing, now it's all I got. We're one, but we're not the same. Yeah, we hurt each other, then we do it again. You say love is a tempo, love a higher law. Love is a tempo, love a higher law. Then you make me crawl, but I can't be holding on to what you've got when all you got is hurt. One love, one blood, a life. You've got to do what you should.
you have to reject one expression of the band first before you get to the next expression. And in between, you have nothing. You have to risk it all.
Give me 2 more chances, you won't be denied.